You're listening to the Aesthetically Speaking podcast, presented by Nextech.
Welcome back to Aesthetically Speaking, the podcast presented by Nextech. I'm Robin Ntoh, and today I have Erica Crawford with me. She's a president at Influx Marketing. Erica, welcome.
Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for having me.
So excited that we can talk all things marketing, especially those controversial subjects today. So before we get into it, let's talk about a little bit about yourself, your background. How did you get into the world of marketing, and especially when it comes to aesthetics?
Absolutely. So I originally started with public relations, which is a different subject, but it's a cousin of marketing. It has some crossover.
Right.
I then moved into marketing about 10 years ago, and then into medical marketing about 5 years ago. And anybody who knows me really well knows I have a passion in the subject of medicine and aesthetics. I have watched every type of surgery video. I've learned all the nomenclature and the technology. I've learned a lot, as much as one can without actually being, having a medical degree.
So you basically immersed yourself, is what it sounds like.
Myself. I'm very passionate about medical aesthetics.
Took it to another level. That's good. There's people that cannot immerse themselves to that degree. They might pass out. We know that. Yes, for sure.
Oh, no. I'm the one eating popcorn, sitting,
like,
watching.
bring
I
it
love
on.
it. Yes, I love it.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. I feel kindred to you in that respect because I love it. I love learning. And it's always fascinating. We're here at ASPS this weekend and on the floor here, learning a lot about what's new in the space. And obviously with any new procedure, a new technique or new filler or whatever it may be, there's always got to be a little bit of controversy.
Absolutely.
You need a little bit of the, push to the wrong, to the right, just to kind of give a little, almost like a little bit of an energy that brings people forth so that they can kind of get involved. So let's talk about what you would consider, let's talk about one of those new arenas that's been big. Let's dig into GLP-1s.
My favorite.
Yeah, everybody's.
Topic.
We've heard this. It's the new Viagra, right?
Oh, absolutely.
It's crazy what this has done to the market. I recently did a whole research project on overweight, obesity, and more than 70% of U.S. citizens are considered obese or overweight. And so why not? This is, of course, groundbreaking. It's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. So what's bad about it?
Well, obviously, I think people are pretty aware, especially those marketing GLPs in their private practices. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of legalities around it, what you can and can't say. Right?
Yeah.
So Ozempic is not semaglutide, even if it kind of is, right? And Mounjaro and tirzepatide, you actually have to separate out things. And here are my sort of do's and don'ts and what will get you in trouble and what won't get you in trouble. And I almost feel this like I need to say this is, September 2024. And the reason I'm saying that is that these things can change very rapidly. Right. So here are my do's and don'ts for right now, but this is a really quick evolving subject. Everybody got those cease and desist from Eli+Lilly and all this crazy stuff is going on, but we do a lot, and I mean a lot of marketing for GLPs in private practices. And so we've kind of come up with our do's and don'ts.
Well, you've got to be the educator,
right,
so to speak, because you understand what's going to get them in trouble. And this goes way beyond just their board or society guidelines,
yes,
right? We're talking about federal at this point. And then there's the state to consider as well.
Yes.
So we've got all of those different components. And then you've got the actual provider and what their requirements are.
Right.
So, all right, let's hear your do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts. Do not use the brand names. You're like, well, it's like Ozempic. No, just don't get into it, right? It's semaglutide. It's a medical weight loss drug. These are the things it does. People are smart. They will research online. They will get the answers for themselves. But do not borrow from the brand names because that is opening yourself up for lawsuits. It's also just simply not necessary anymore. People are pretty well educated. They understand these terms, medical weight loss. They understand semaglutide. They understand GLP, tirzepatide. There's been enough social media over the past year that there's a general awareness of it.
Household name.
It's a household name. So you do not need to borrow from the brands.
Yep.
Also, controversial, but this is from, I'm going to say what I have personally observed and what I see. FDA approved. Let's talk about it. Technically, Ozempic is FDA approved and Mounjaro.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, semaglutide and tirzepatide is not. Now, Some people will argue and fight with me on that because you're like, well, it's a compound. One covers the other. There's a short list. There's all this other stuff. I'm telling you, I know for a fact that the people who have said that they're FDA approved have been sued.
Yes.
And they've actually been sued by the creators of Ozempic and Mounjaro, who's saying, hey, you're saying your drug is like mine because you're saying yours is FDA approved, and it's not, only mine is. So it's not like some random patient is suing them, but it's a problem. So just don't get into it. Once again, people are smart. They'll figure it out. They're not stupid, right? But don't say, your semaglutide is FDA approved when really it's Ozempic that is. And I know this is the Advil ibuprofen argument, but it still is what it is.
Well, I mean, they've got the big guns.
Exactly.
And they're going to definitely pull them out because they want to own what's theirs. And who knows what we're preparing for in the future with them.
Exactly. So that is definitely something that I would keep a really, really close eye on. Another thing is about advertising for it. So we are really big fans of running both Google and Meta being the parent company for Facebook and Instagram, ads for semaglutide and tirzepatide. They actually perform really well, have one of the lowest CPAs of any sort of aesthetic wellness procedure. And it's something just in general I'm a fan of, but there's actually a lot of guidelines from Google and from Meta, like Instagram, of what you can and can't say. And a lot of people will run ads and they'll get their accounts banned or they'll get in trouble somehow and they don't know why. But it's really simple if you think with this, which is that when you run paid ads for these procedures, it has to be from an educational standpoint. You can't say things like skinny shot or this is going to make you so thin or like anything like that they don't like. If you run an ad saying like, this is a new medical weight loss medication, it's been helping people feel great, feel healthy, it lowers BMI. You say things like that that are a little bit more educational, the ads typically get approved. But certain images kind of indicating that one weight is better than another, that's not considered like body positive, basically, or anything that's kind of makes it seem like it's too good to be true, even if it is too good to be true, all those ads get banned. So a lot of people have a lot of trouble in that area where they don't know how to advertise for it. But just think of it as like, be educational, be a little bit more matter of fact, undersell it if anything.
Right.
And those are the ads that get approved. Remember, once again, people already know what it is. They're already looking for it. So you don't have to go crazy on your ads anyways. You could just make very simple ads to educate them on the product.
You're just making my head spin. So many guidelines. So now we've got federal, we've got state, we've got board, we've got society, and now we've got Google telling us what to do and can't do.
Yep. Yeah. It's actually. I'm trying to think of like the closest. Maybe PRP has as much going around it as it's probably the closest thing, but it's the only. It's only procedure, medication, anything I have ever seen on the market that has this many hoops to jump through. That's actually totally worth it. Because, when you have GLPs, right? Like, of course, everybody wants to be like big time and have 500 subs and 1,000 subs and all that stuff. But the truth is, even with just like 20 or 30 subscriptions, even though it's not to me about even the passive revenue. Like, of course, there's passive revenue.
Yeah.
But it's about, those are your future tummy tuck, arm lifts, body lifts, your breast lifts. They're all the lifts, face lift, all the lifts. Those are your lift patients. Those are your skin tightening. Those are your skin removal.
I think you've just come up on a new little marketing scheme there.
Yeah, like those are your future patients. And all the clients I have who have been doing it for like at least a year, like where there's enough time to have enough weight loss, they convert like a massive percentage of those into patients.
Well, they've been walking through the door for a while now. They've got the trust, they've got the relationship. Why not?
Yep.
I think it also lends itself to the reason why plastic surgeons are starting to offer it, because they want people to get to that ideal BMI before they can do surgery.
Yep.
So if they turn them away, they're going to go down the street, go someplace else, and they may not ever see them again.
Yeah.
But by the same token, it's the same thing that we see in med spa where absolutely we're going to get them in there. They're going to be introduced to it. They do it, and then they turn into your injectable patients.
Exactly.
Because and especially as they're going through that journey, it's the things that help them get through the journey, because then they start to see those massive changes. And so this is their help. This is the thing that kind of boosts them back up as they're going through it. All right, so we've got the ability to attract these patients and bring them in. Let's kind of transition and talk about this from the perspective of, is social media the best platform to attract these patients?
Yeah.
Or is it And do they convert better? I mean, are there any stats out there on that?
Social media is it's an interesting subject, and do they can convert better? It's the Google versus social media. My simple answer is you just do both. There's not really one or the other, and it's by demographic. Some cities, for whatever reason, do way better doing Meta, like Instagram, the sponsored posts, and some cities, for whatever reason, do way better doing Google. And it's half and half. And I know that it's just how it is. That's where the search traffic is. That's where the interest is. That's how it works. I'm a big fan of organic social to a degree. I feel that at a lot of conferences and conventions and plastic surgeons go to various things, and a lot of the marketing talks are from influencers. They just are, right? And the influencers go up and they say, being an influencer, is how I get all my patients. It's how I created my practice or my plastic surgery practice or my med spa. And if I wasn't an influencer, I wouldn't have any patients. And if you are not an influencer, you are terrible and you're not going to have any patients. And it's a whole thing because the person speaking is an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
But then we did a study of a bunch, over a couple hundred practices who are in the multi-seven figure, well into the sevens, in the eights, and less than 10% of them had over 100,000 followers, right?
Really?
So while I'm not negating the fact that being an influencer or utilizing social media brings you in GLP patients or any type of patient, I'm just saying that the amount of plastic surgeons and med spas that have gone that route and built their practice off of social media and that's their sole success or their main success is actually a really, really small percent. Most people build their practices by using a lot of different marketing. They got their social media, they got their email, they got their SEO, they have their ads, they have their referrals, their word of mouth, patients telling patients, loyalty programs, events. There's many different things you could be doing. I mean, heck, maybe a billboard works for you. Whatever that is, most practices use all of that. They don't just use one.
Yeah, I would agree with you, simply because thinking about over the years and having access to the data within Nextech and seeing that the top 3 referral sources have historically always been patients, physicians, and the web.
Yep.
Now, yes, we see that social media is definitely number 4, sometimes even a little bit higher. But then when you drill down a level and you look underneath just the overarching view from the practice and start looking at it by provider, there's some interesting finds.
Yeah.
For example, what I've seen is that physicians still are going to see their biggest attraction out there from their existing patients.
Yes.
And social media was not driving that. It was fascinating to see that, because you wouldn't have seen that if you had just been looking at it holistically.
Right.
Then the second thing that I thought was fascinating is that a provider that's a mid-level doing those injectables, even your estheticians, the ones that are new in the market tend to grow organically very, very quickly with social media, especially when they're authentic and they're showing something very different. But then when you look at them from the perspective, are they building or growing from the web or from other patients? Not so much.
Yeah.
But it also gets them that boost, and they're very quick to get to the level up where they want to be, simply because social media helps them get there faster. But from a long-term perspective, is it sustainable?
Right. No, that's a very valid point, and I agree. Sustainability of everything is important. Here's something I always tell people, right? You have to think about marketing like finances. It's actually really similar. You have X amount of money to invest. You have low risk, high risk. You have short term, long term, and you have to be worried about ROI the whole time. It's the same, literally, it's actually the same principles to finance and marketing, really the same principles.
Yeah.
And what I say is similar to building your financial portfolio, you've got to diversify, meaning at everything that you do, all the different marketing channels you do, they will never be a situation when they're all batting 100%. SEO might not be doing good, but ads is doing good. Social media is doing good, but email marketing is doing good. Patient referrals went down because they're all out of town and it's August. But you know what? I got a bunch more from, this billboard I did, whatever it is, right? That's just how it works. So when you put all your eggs into one basket, you are setting yourself up for a potential catastrophe, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're just social, say you get shadow banned one day or fully banned, right?
Yeah.
Let's say you're just ads, but then competitor that just got all this private equity money suddenly puts 50 grand a month in their ads and now your ads aren't showing more? What if you're just SEO? Same concept. What if somebody just suddenly comes in and starts outranking you? Like as soon as you start focusing too much into one channel or just doing one thing, you set yourself up you set yourself up for a lot of trouble. You have to set up a situation where you have many things going all at the same time, including your patient referrals, which I'm a huge fan of, like loyalty programs,
Yeah.
birthday texts, like all that events, all that fun stuff. Like it actually goes really, really far to keeping your existing patients coming back to you.
Well, it's just not one stream that you're
It's not
feeding
one
into your practice. You have to
Exactly.
think about, like you said, long, short, so many different avenues into this. I also think about this from the perspective of the different generations
Yes.
and their expectations, what they're looking for, how to market to them. And I lean back into also looking at this from the component of looking at it by procedure.
Yes.
What is your acceptance rate by procedure? And that can be very telling because you may do better on social media for breast dogs versus facelifts.
Yep.
And you should know that.
Yes.
You can't just assume that it's one way for everything. And then when you know that information, it's so much easier to lean in on where you emphasize and where you need to do better or do more, but also where you have your weaknesses and your risks and your opportunities.
Correct. No, you couldn't have said it better. Like learning about your demographic mixed with your procedure and figuring out which platform, you have to figure that out because it is going to be different. I mean, I also, even on the social platforms, I've seen people like who do, I've seen practices do Reddit. They're great at Reddit.
Really?
They do Reddit Ask Me things. There's a few. It's not common, but
Okay.
I'm just going out there, right? But they kill it. And they get all these patients from Reddit and they do a bunch of Reddit Ask Me Anything. And they get a ton of patients that way. And like, that's their thing. Similarly, I saw a practice like with YouTube do these like pretty graphic surgical videos and gain a massive following off of doing just one procedure over and over and over and over again on YouTube. Made it huge just from their own thing. So also like having your niche. I know a lot of people say that, like find your niche, go with your niche. It definitely helps. Doesn't mean you have to box yourself out of other things, but like maybe on social media, figuring out like your key thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can market all on the web. You can do all on Google and ads on your website, but like it doesn't hurt to lean into something a bit on your social media platforms.
Well, I think about social media as being a quick glimpse into something or someone.
Yes.
And then they dig into that more when they go to their website. So you can't just assume that it's all social media to that end. You have to have the website that still supports.
Yes.
Because they're going to go there next, most likely. Because that's when they learn about you more. Okay, do I really like this person? Are they good enough? What do other people say about them? Goes back to patient reviews. Let's talk about patient reviews.
Patient reviews. I'm a huge fan of patient reviews, but it's such a controversial subject.
Oh, yes.
Didn't you hear about that doctor? Where was he? I think he was like in the Pacific Northwest somewhere. I think like he just got sued for like $5 million for like falsifying his patient reviews. It's a really important subject, but it's one that you could really mess up really badly.
Oh, quickly.
Yeah.
Very much so.
So here are my things on reviews. It's really simple because I hear it all the time. This doctor's got 600 reviews. I'm never going to get to 600. Don't worry about it. Slow and steady is actually the best way. It's also what Google likes to see, right? Getting quality reviews, getting like maybe 1 or 2 a week and like growing it up over time is really the best path forward because Google also sees it. They don't see it as like too spammy, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a difference between SEO and local optimization. So local optimization is the actions done so that your Google business profile, which is a little profile with your name, your address, all your Google reviews, and your photos, right, gets shown up in that top 3 in that little map, right? And that whole process of trying to get your Google business profile, GBP, it used to be called GMB, up into that map is a completely different process actually than your SEO, which is getting your organic keywords in those listings that are under the map.
Just another thing to worry about.
I know. A lot of people conflate the two, but they're actually 2 different efforts and 2 different subjects. So for local optimization, getting your business profile up in that map so that people can see it really easily, the 1 to 2 Google reviews consistently, they love seeing that. I could tell you what I hate. I hate it so much because it actually violates Google policies. There is a lot of software out there that people will try to sell physicians and med spas on that go, hey, you send it to a patient, right? And it goes like, click here for a review. And then if it's a 5-star review, it sends them to Google to post the review. And if it's not a 5-star review, it basically like sends them a message of like, how could we have done better? And it doesn't actually post a review. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like a ton of software that does 100% against Google policies, questionably against the law about review policies in medicine. Like, it is just a massive no-no. I'm very anti all those software. You don't do it. You just ask for a review and just hope you ask the right patient.
Well,
that's how you go about it.
I mean, we need to ask for reviews, period.
Yeah.
But I think about this going back into, are you even giving them that option?
Yeah.
You want the reviews, but you also want the surveys. You want people to give you feedback.
Yes.
Feedback helps you be better. And let's face it, everybody's looking for it. Like whether you're online looking to buy a dress at Nordstrom and you're like, okay, there's 10 reviews there. What did everybody say? It makes a difference. And you want to know because you want to have perspective. Now, a bad review is also not a bad thing.
It's not, because you can take a bad review, depending on the circumstances. Like, okay, if you're like, okay, that person was just a little woohoo, you know?
Yeah.
You could ignore it. But let's say it's something that's like very specific. Like they're like, I called and called and called and I couldn't reach anybody. And let's say you reply with saying, I'm so sorry, we had a hurricane that day, we were out of the practice.
Give them a reason.
Give them a reason. You know what? As somebody looking for a plastic surgeon or med spa to go to, if I read that review, I'd be like, this is authentic, this is real, this answered the question. Like, I would actually be more inclined to believe that this is a like legitimate practice with legitimate reviews. It's not a negative. A matter of fact, when I see something with like hundreds of reviews and they're all 5 stars, I'm like, look, the reviews.
I don't necessarily want to go to a practice
I don't want
like
to
that
either.
because there's no such thing as perfect.
No, even if the doctor is great, like there's going to be a front desk or somebody doesn't call back in time or
someone had a bad day.
Yeah, like things happen. I want to see that 4.8. You know,
Well, let's talk about the two. Is it really more? Do I want 4.5 or am I okay with 4.7? Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah, I personally like 4.7, 4.8. That's what I personally like. That makes me feel like it's authentic, but it's also really high and there's a volume of reviews.
Yes.
The other thing about reviews that helps your local optimization, back to getting that Google business map up there, is responding to them. And a lot of people don't. Now, before I tell you how to respond, I have to explain something, which is, well, it's HIPAA, right? Well, we know about HIPAA. But from what I have learned and what I have understood in the world of marketing, that if you basically acknowledge that that person was a patient of your practice, you violate HIPAA, even if they say it first. If they go, oh my gosh, I just got my Botox done by Dr. Brown. It was amazing, 5 stars. And you respond going, thank you so much, Natalie, for your review. Boom, HIPAA violation.
Yep.
Even if she posted it as Natalie, like even if it's all checked off, you can't say that. So the way you respond to Google reviews, thank you for your review. Thank you so much. This means so much for us. I appreciate your review. I know it sounds really boring, but it does acknowledge the patient, but it also boosts your local optimization.
Well,
Google,
that's my point. Is it doing something for you other than just showing manners, good manners?
Yeah, no, it actually boosts your optimization. Google likes to see it. So just take 10 variations of really simply acknowledging the review and just run through it. It takes you a second. It takes a second to do it, and it actually helps you a lot.
You know, Erica, we've hit some big controversial subjects. Let's talk about where it lives with social media.
Social media. Okay. So I personally am a huge fan of doing social media in-house.
You mean you're turning away business?
I am turning away business.
Okay.
For social
Let's
media,
talk about why.
I turn away business
Let's
all
talk
the
about
time.
why.
So the best social media is when you're taking things that are happening in the practice, moments with a patient, with you as the doctor, with the nurse, with the injector, moments, happy moments, sad moments, funny moments, any kind of moment. And you're taking quick little videos or quick little photos, and you're very rapidly and a little messily, doesn't have to be perfect, adding it to your social profiles, your TikToks, your Instagram, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be some big fancy thing, but you need a lot of content. You do. Most of the people with really active social profiles are posting stories constantly, their stories up, and they're doing reels and posts multiple times a day, right? Minimally at least once a day. And so to do that, you just have to capture these moments, and it doesn't have to be some whole production. These are your little iPhone moments. Get a little tripod, a little backlight, like all that stuff you get really cheap off Amazon. You just capture moments, right? Or maybe you don't even have it. Just grab your phone. And the problem with using an agency is you have to capture those moments, send them to the agency, and it's hard. It's hard to manage somebody's social media if you're not physically there in the practice. I think you can do what I call like a social media branding. And what I mean is doing like a few, maybe you're taking the before and after photos and you're watermarking them and you're making them look pretty and you're doing the before and after posts. Maybe you're taking a few patient testimonials and you're putting them up and you're putting them on the Instagram. Maybe you're doing like a few like professional shots or things like that, like a little bit of branding so like the colors and everything stay cohesive. And with all your fun, messy posts, you're doing like a few professional ones in between. I think that's fine to outsource for an agency. Your specials, your before and after, your testimonials, your photos, things like that are fine. But all those videos and reels and stories and all those like moments you're capturing that show you who the people in your practice really are, it just has to be done in-house. It just has to be done by somebody who's there. How are you supposed to do it if you're not there?
Yeah, no, I think about this a little bit more broadly. Some people have done a really good job of incorporating social media into their business and even made it a full-time job. And some people have actually gone by the wayside and kind of let their website slip and not paid attention to it, nor have they paid attention to those strong referral sources and managing them still. I look at this kind of like media in general. So let's kind of take a history journey here, okay? Yeah. Take a walk through time.
I love it.
So we started with newspaper. We're not going to go back further than that. Newspaper was not replaced by radio.
No.
It was additive.
Yes.
And then we have TV, which did not replace radio.
Nope.
And carry on. And then we had the World Wide Web, which did not replace TV.
Nope.
Now they've transformed and they've had to adapt to live within the same space and share attention, but they've not been replaced. I think the same is true here. We still have people that pick up the newspaper and read it, or they look at it online. So I think that this is where practices have to think about not just that they need those components. I'm not saying go out there and do radio spots now. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is you can't forget about managing the website.
Yes.
And maybe that's not done in-house because you need someone that really can stay on top of it and really focus on all of the different changes. I mean, all the time I'm hearing that Google's changed their algorithm.
Yes.
Okay, maybe not as frequently as I think they do, but it's a lot. It's a lot to manage it. But I think to your point, it's so true. How do you become really authentic unless you take it inside your practice and do it? And this is where practices struggle because they don't generally have a full-time person that's doing it, nor maybe they don't have the budget to do it. But then they can't get some of the providers to do it. And so that becomes a key problem because now I'm trying to take providers and maybe force them into something that's just not comfortable for them.
Yeah.
And I actually can think of a practice right now where they've got 6 mid-levels. 3 of them do it very well. And they actually have really grown and supported their own organic growth just by doing social. Whereas the other 3 have been around for so long and they don't feel like they need to do it because they've got a history already of being well established and get that good, strong patient referral base. I would argue that the 3 that are doing it are probably going to continue to grow and be more relevant because they're augmenting their style of gaining new patients and referrals because they're relevant to a broader generational format.
I agree. Also, for all the doctors that are out there that are very uncomfortable with social media, you don't have to be like dancing or doing a trend. Like just be yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's okay.
Don't have to be the pimple popper, you mean?
No, you don't have to be any of these things.
No.
You just be you.
Right.
Right? Because the patient that you're going to get is the one that goes for you. Because, you know, there's been a lot of surveys over the year and a lot of data of like why a patient chooses a plastic surgeon. And the before and after and the results are not the only reason. A lot of it is who they're comfortable going into surgery with. So just be yourself. That's who the patient's going to meet. And that's what they're going to decide on eventually.
Yes.
So I really am just like, for you who are uncomfortable with it, you do got to do something. You also don't need to have like a huge following. You need to have better engagement. Like I used to have a few practices we work with that have like 3,000, 4,000 followers, but great engagement. Like every time they do a post, they have like maybe 20 to 30 different like comments and questions and stuff like that with only having 3,000 or 4,000 followers. Meanwhile, there's some practices that have 100,000 followers who have less engagement than that. So it's really about the engagement numbers, not so much the follower count, because that's
so
what
true.
matters, really.
Yeah.
So just when you're trying to build your social media, don't factor with your numbers, your follower number. Just go like, what are my average comments and shares per post?
Yeah.
That's actually the only numbers you should be thinking with.
Yeah.
Like, how many comments and shares am I getting on every post? How many people are sliding in my DMs, asking me about my practice? Those are the only numbers you should care about, not follower count.
Interesting take on it. Well, if you had a magic wand, what is one marketing problem that you would solve for a practice?
Building up their patient and contact lists.
Really?
Okay, so let me explain this.
All right.
So you have different types of marketing platforms out there. Platform being anywhere from Google to Instagram to TikTok to Bing to DuckDuckGo. Like, doesn't matter. These are all platforms.
Yep.
And you are borrowing space on them. You are renting property on these platforms. You do not own anything. You do not own your SEO. You do not own your Google ads. You do not own your social media profile. You are renting on other people's space, and they can change their algorithms. They can shadow ban you. They can ban your ads. They can decide to take a competitor over you. They can make all these decisions, even if these decisions are just made by bots and algorithms. They can make all these decisions that affect your practice. The truth is, in marketing, there are very few things that you truly own. One of them is your website itself. You should own your website, the content, the photos, whatever's on the website itself. And you have full control over that, right? You can make any changes you want, anything you want. It's something you own. The other thing is your word of mouth, your reputation, your own personal relations, your own PR. You own that, right? And the next thing is your email list, your text message list. People have opted into your text. People have opted into your emails. You fully own your email list. And if all fails, you could be running email campaigns and loyalty programs and text messages and doing events. You own all of that. So I think it's really important to build up the platforms that you own, which, by the way, like, there's nothing cheaper in the world of marketing than email marketing or text message marketing. It's the cheapest type of marketing there is. So there's a lot of value in building that up from a financial perspective too. It's actually one of the highest return on investment type of marketing out there is sending out emails and sending out text message blasts, which a lot of people don't talk about or don't really look at.
They've stopped talking about it.
They've stopped talking about, probably because it's like a little bit like do yourself. Like, you grab your MailChimp or Constant Contact or text, you just go for it. You know what I mean? There's obviously some regulations and do's and don'ts. Don't get me wrong, but it's a relatively simple type of marketing, right? Compared to running SEO or paid ads. And
I think people have gotten a little tired of it. There's a little fatigue over too many emails in their inbox. But I think there's a lot that can be done to improve.
There are. And there's regulations.
That's just a whole other subject that we could dig into.
Yes, and there's a lot of regulations. Like, it goes down to like which cities you should send how many emails and how many. Like, there is a lot to go over it. But once you have it down, it's very repetitive. You're just doing the same thing every single month for your city, for your demographic, for your patient list. So once you have it down, it's kind of forever. You just keep that on repeat, right? But a lot of people don't think about that. So they're constantly spending money on other people's platforms, which obviously I'm for that. Those are borrowed channels, they're borrowed platforms, or you should. But at the same time, you need to be building up the things that you have ownership into that have value. Also, just to say it, at some point, if you want to sell a practice, bring on a partner or anything like that, those things typically take a play in your valuation. The things that you own, your lists, your website, your domain, like things like that matter.
It's equity.
Yeah, it's equity. Your paid ads, your social media, if it's just connected, especially if it's connected to like you as a person, like those things actually don't really, like long term, if that's your goal, those don't actually take a play in any of that.
No, they're just very short term.
Yep.
It goes back to building up that relationship kind of base with your patients and with your referring physicians and still maintaining your website. Yep. And there's a lot of practices out there that have kind of forgotten that and it's gone by the wayside and they've not made that relevant. And you make a great point. Everything else is just rented. So.
Yep. Rented versus owned.
Well, Erica, this has been fabulous. I love this. I can't wait till we do part 2 and we dig into some more of those inside internal office structures that they should be focusing on. So thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me, Robin. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Aesthetically Speaking, the podcast where beauty meets business, presented by Nextech. Follow and subscribe on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. Links to the resources mentioned on this podcast are available in your show notes. For more information about Nextech, visit nextech.com, or to learn more about TouchMD, go to touchmd.com. Aesthetically Speaking is a production of The Axis, THEAXIS.io.